My name is Alex Bianchi. I'm an incoming intern to Amazon, and I'm in the project search phase for Google, and I did all of this without taking a single computer science class. I am technically a computer science student, but in this video I'm going to be giving you the A to Z, just fast facts, what you need to do in order to get an internship at a top tech company, starting from roughly the time that you leave high school. If you're interested in more details, if you're interested in pretty much anything, like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff helps out the channel. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions. I'll address them in another video. And without further ado, let's just get right into it. So the first part of getting an internship at one of these tech companies is building a resume. In order to build a resume, you're going to need projects and you're going to need work experience. Hard to get work experience without an internship. Hard to get an internship without work experience. It's that loop. So what you're going to do is you're going to build a project. The projects, if you're just starting off to learn how to code, if you're a freshman in high school, then you got to start slow. Maybe use some YouTube tutorials, read a book that walks you through building a project, something along those lines. Your projects should become, as you build more and more throughout the years of your time in university, your projects should be less and less reliant on outside resources and more complex, so that eventually when you graduate you have some like really substantial projects, and instead of putting 4 medium-sized or small projects on your resume, you can just put 1 or 2 like really beefy projects on your resume. And using those first beginner projects, you're going to start applying to local tech internships with local companies and or programs like Amazon Propel, Google Step, those freshman, sophomore in college programs at big tech companies. Those are going to be the way to get experience before you actually get internship experience. It's like an internship for an internship. Apply to all of those. Theoretically, you get one. You can also, during this time, just apply to the plain old internships. If you go to a good school, if you have a good project, something along those lines. If you have referrals, then you might get your resume looked at. You might be able to interview. You might not pass the interview, but that's okay. You should still apply, because even if you fail the interview, it's a bunch of experience. While you're building these projects, you also need to kind of immerse yourself in the culture of software engineering and getting these internships, although I would kind of put an asterisk on that, is watch a YouTube channel like mine, or Clement, or Joma, or so many other YouTubers, and really just binge watch all their content for a few months, and then pick 1 or 2 that you really like and keep watching them. But you don't want to be like obsessed with figuring out how you're gonna kind of apply all the things that you're learning. You just want to take enough information that you have a general understanding of how the industry works, and then go and apply. So don't get in that YouTube loop of I'm going to watch this YouTube video and that YouTube video, and once I finally finish every video on YouTube, I'll be prepared. Nope, just spend a few weeks kind of immersing yourself, listening to the YouTube videos while you're walking around campus or whatever, and then you'll probably know enough to start interviewing, start practicing for interviews, start building substantial projects.
Internships, everything from
She's about to
Much
intern at
learn
Google,
all my coding skills
and
here.
she came to me
All the
today.
software engineering classes here.
She came to me today. First thing I want to say about Google Internships.
When you're building your resume for the first internship that you're going to be trying to get, you might want to prioritize some of the stuff that you've done in your academic history, clubs, classes, things along those lines, and your projects. And it's also okay to maybe have a high school job or 2 on there if you would say an assistant restaurant manager like I was back in the day. So all of that, spruce up your resume, tell white lies, and use that to get your first internship. With your first internship and your projects that should have gotten larger by now, you're going to put it all into a new resume. By the way, with these resumes, make sure you're not building the resume yourself. Find a resume template online so that you can get through resume screeners, because when you apply to a big tech company, it's not a recruiter that looks at your resume, it's a robot. And then once a robot looks at it and says, okay, they're cool, then a recruiter looks at it, and then you start to get into an actual interview process. But if you don't pass those 2 phases because you used a improper interview template or resume template, then you're done. So make sure you use a proper resume template that you find somewhere on the internet. If you're applying to these bigger tech companies, you're going to want to start studying your data structure and algorithms. That's so that you can do interview prep on a website, LeetCode.com. LeetCode.com has questions similar to that you'll get asked in online assessments and interviews, and if you study on that website, which you are going to want to do, you're going to want to start with the LeetCode Easies. You might not be able to solve them. That's okay. If you have absolutely no understanding of data structures and algorithms, then you're going to want to read a data structures and algorithms textbook, take a course at your university, which is going to be status quo for most university computer science curriculums, or take a course online like Coursera, Udemy, something along those lines. Get enough foundational information that you can start solving LeetCode Easies. There's 3 tiers, easy, medium, hard, to LeetCode problems. And once you solve enough easies, then you're going to be able to start doing mediums, and you should spend about 25 minutes or so really trying to solve it on your own. But in the beginning, if you just look at it and you have absolutely no idea where to start, give yourself a hint, try and find the solution, and maybe take the first few lines of code to kind of get you going, and just make sure that when you do look at the solution, because you're going to have to look at the solution sometimes, that you take a minute to really understand both the conceptual part of how the solution works and the code part of how it works, implemented in a programming language, and then preferably put the answer away and go solve it yourself with the answer in your short-term memory there. That's probably the best strategy to maximizing your kind of internship interview grind. At this point, you can barely solve a medium. If you want to get really, really good, you should be able to solve most mediums in under 25 minutes, but you don't need to be that good to get an internship. You just need to be that good to get every internship. So please start applying early and often. Apply. You're going to get these things called online assessments. They're basically going to be leak code problems. You're going to have to solve them. Theoretically, you're not supposed to use Google, but what the company doesn't know won't hurt them. And you're going to solve the online assessment. If you do well in the online assessment, you're going to get an interview. If you get an interview, you're probably going to get either a behavioral question, in which case for behavioral questions, you should have all of the kind of standard questions that you might get asked in a behavioral interview, have answers to them prepped in advance. You can Google it, standard questions for that company. You should have a rough idea of that company's like values, quote unquote, that they may or may not live by, but it doesn't matter, because if you pull out something from the company values website and throw it back at a recruiter, they're going to be extremely impressed. So have answers to standard behavioral questions prepped, understand the company that you're getting yourself into, study leak code so that you can solve like leak code mediums in a reasonable amount of time. It might take a few months to get there, but you will get there. And just apply. It really is a numbers game. If you got to apply to 200 companies and solve 200 leak code problems before you really feel confident, that's okay, but you should start applying, before you feel confident, because it's going to be the mock interviews that aren't exactly mock interviews. They're real interviews, but you don't stand a chance, but it's the experience of being in the limelight, getting asked the question, that's really going to just let you grow. If your resume isn't working after you have 1 or 2 substantial projects and another internship, it's because your resume format is wrong. So go back to whichever step that I said. You need to make sure you pick a resume template from the internet and find another template and rework it. Run it through a resume scanner. I have YouTube videos on this. And again, apply. It really is a numbers game. If you study leak code, if you don't choke in every behavioral interview that you're ever in, and if you build a couple projects, get some beginner experience, you will land an internship at a top tech company paying upwards of $50 an hour, sometimes more, sometimes a little bit less. And if along the way you land an internship at a medium-sized tech company, that is still fantastic. So what? They're paying you $25 or $30 an hour. It's a foot in the door. Maybe you like the company. Maybe you go full-time there. It really doesn't matter. But if you follow this and kind of shoot for the moon with it, worst case scenario, you reach the stars, or whatever that bullshit saying is. And that is it. I promised you a short YouTube video, and I gave you one. Peace.